Hello beautiful people, it's Danny and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is all about kindness versus niceness. And what's the difference? Is there any? So as always, to properly get into our topic, we have to define the terms. So, what does it mean to be kind? My definition of kind is the state in which a person is empathetic towards others and takes compassionate or selfless action from a place of love. Meaning you're literally just doing things out of the kindness of your heart. My definition of nice is the state in which a person takes charitable or courteous action with the desire or motive to receive acceptance or feel like a good person. Oftentimes, acts of kindness and acts of niceness are the same physical action, but the consciousness and the energy behind the actions holds a different vibration. In really simple terms, being kind comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of authentically wanting to love and honor someone, expecting nothing in return. Being nice, on the other hand, comes from a place of fear. We're doing something because we don't feel like we're good enough within ourselves, and we feel like we have to prove our worth through these good actions. So obviously, the thoughts that run through our head when we are kind and nice tend to be very similar. Most of the time, we do believe our intentions are pure. So since our thoughts don't necessarily or explicitly indicate to us whether we are truly being kind or being nice, how do we tell the difference? Number one, what's the motive? Kindness can certainly be accompanied with the desire to receive acceptance. And you have to be honest as to whether or not that is the motivating factor. How would you feel if this action wasn't received in the way that you are projecting or expecting? Obviously, you may feel disappointed in both scenarios, but would you then see that act as a complete waste of time? Or would you just be like, oh, well, that's a little disappointing? When you're deep down expecting an outcome while fronting that you're doing something just because you're a nice person, it's not genuine. Usually the reason we're nice with ulterior motives is because we haven't gotten our needs met throughout our life. So we have to get them met indirectly. We have to get them met manipulatively. So we don't see our acts of niceness as manipulative, but we're presenting, hey, I'm just doing this awesome, nice thing. But behind that facade, there's a need that you're trying to get met through this false front. Would you be taking this action if that need you're trying to meet was already met? So an example of this would be, let's say you have a bag of candy and you have a bunch of gummy worms and your friend is eyeing them and you offer them to have some of the candy. Are you just doing this because you're like, sure, have some, I want you to enjoy it with me, I don't want to be sitting here snacking alone? Or in the back of your mind, are you thinking, oh, maybe if I offer this to them, next time they have something that I don't have, they'll feel inclined to offer it to me? And in reality, it's actually totally okay to explicitly say that that's what you want. You could say, you know, I'm really enjoying this bag of gummy worms, so I'm happy to share them with you, but next time you have something and I don't, can I call it a little rain check? Can I trade some of this for some candy you may have at a future time? Because then you're being authentic. You're being honest about what you want from that person instead of mentally forcing them to sign a contract that they don't know they're signing. The second way to spot the difference between kindness and niceness is asking yourself, are you sacrificing yourself? By sacrificing yourself, I don't mean you're doing selfless things or doing things that are inconvenient for you. I mean you are denying your well-being, your authentic truth for the sake of pleasing others. Do you feel like you have to do this selfless thing in order to be loved? Do you feel like your self-worth is somehow tied to your niceness, to your selflessness? If you feel obligated to be a nice person because of the fact that you feel like you're not good enough, and the only thing good about you is how good of a person you are, how nice of a person you are. Why do you believe that is your only redeemable quality? How has this quality made you feel accepted in your social groups or in your family dynamic? What happened when you didn't fill that role? It is awesome to do things selflessly, even when it may not be convenient for you. But when it comes to denying your needs, when it comes to rejecting yourself, for the sake of making someone else's life a little bit easier, you are completely draining your energy for something that doesn't serve the highest good of all. Number 3, do you feel resentful? Niceness can lead us to resent others because nobody does for us what we do for them. We perceive that our generosity, we perceive that our selflessness gives us worth. When we are nice instead of kind, We build up this resentment because we are sacrificing ourselves in order to make other people feel good. With kindness, you don't expect something in return. But at the same time, since kindness isn't accompanied with self-sacrifice, it comes with being kind to yourself. That also means you don't let people walk all over you. And often when we are nice, often when we fall into the people pleaser role, we do let people walk all over us. We do let people violate our boundaries. We do let people do things that aren't in alignment to our needs. So ask yourself, how does being nice make you feel? How do these acts of kindness or generosity impact you emotionally? When we're kind, we'll feel generous. We'll feel excited and warm. We'll have admiration for the other person. Our primary motivator in giving is the fact that we wanted to express our love to this other person. Whereas being nice may lead us to feel resentful or relieved, like there's a burden that's been lifted off of your chest because you feel so down and heavy about yourself that when you do this nice thing, you're relieved to have a sense of worth, to have a sense of purpose. And we'll also often feel used, disappointed that this is the only thing that makes us feel good enough. Obviously, it's not a clear-cut line, because to be honest, there is a very blurry line between kindness and niceness. Number 4, what would you do if this act was not popular? Kindness doesn't come with a motive to please others, whereas being nice tends to be more agreeable, tends to be more in alignment with what society or that social group that you're a part of deems as right or wrong. When we tend to take acts from a place of kindness and from a place of love, we don't really concern ourselves with how everyone else is going to perceive this act. Whereas with niceness, we might feel inclined to do something kind, but we hold ourselves back because we're scared. Other people don't want us to take these acts of kindness because it makes them uncomfortable. But when we're aligned to our heart, we'll take these actions anyway. Let's think about bullying, for example. Let's say there's a kid that's getting picked on and people constantly talk shit about them and make fun of them to their face. Your heart is telling you, let's extend an olive branch to this person. Let's show this person that someone sees them and someone cares and someone recognizes what they're going through. The social group that you're a part of doesn't see this thing as a good thing to do. Maybe the social group even believes that this person deserves it, that this person isn't a good person, they don't deserve your love or compassion. But by being aligned to your heart, you take this action anyway. When you're aligned to your fear, you bystand altogether and just think in the back of your mind, dang, this is kind of fucked up, but at least I'm in the in-group. Feels good to be accepted by not associating with this person. And so you continue to be nice to your friends, even though deep down, you know you want to give love and acceptance to this person, but you don't have the confidence to do so because you're trapped by your fear, trapped by insecurity. The 5th way to tell the difference between being kind versus nice is to ask yourself, do you judge those who are less nice? Does being nice give you a sense of superiority when you usually feel inferior? Do you think of people as bad for being selfish or for putting themselves first? Kindness tends to come with empathy and understanding for why people are the way they are. Understanding that if a person is more selfish, if a person tends to put themselves first and stick their neck above the crowd, to ask directly for their needs to get met, you understand that even if those actions aren't aligned, it's because that's the role that has kept them safe. That is the role that is compatible with their family dynamic. That their selfishness doesn't make them any worse than you. They just have a different way of getting their needs met. Obviously, this doesn't mean you have to like it. Just because you have empathy and understanding for why someone fills the role they do doesn't mean it has to jive with you. It just means that you accept them for where they are, whether that's in or out of your circle or your life. The real question is, are you projecting resentment onto this other person for being selfish? Because deep down you're jealous that they feel free to do so? They feel free to put themselves first? They feel free to ask for their needs to be met? While meanwhile, you feel obligated to be nice. You feel bound to this cycle of self-sacrifice. Our discernment, our assessment of others can absolutely be accurate. But when it comes to judgment, when a person's actions really polarize us, it's because we see a rejected aspect of ourselves in that other person. We don't allow ourselves to be selfish. We don't allow ourselves to put ourselves first. So when we see someone else doing it, we get angry. Why do they get to do that? Why do they always put themselves first and people still love them? Why don't I get to be loved when I put myself first? Why do I have to put myself last in order to feel like I'm good enough and they just get to stand up for themselves whenever? Do you see how that's not kind? Do you see how your niceness makes you resent others who get to do what you don't allow yourself to do, who get to do what you weren't able to do when you were a kid? They get to embody an aspect of yourself that you've had to reject to stay safe. And lastly, number 6, do you put conditions on your kindness? Kindness is intuitive. Kindness tells you in the moment when something feels aligned and when something doesn't. Niceness can often come with this analyzation of the logical mind. Do you follow these made-up rules that you've created in your head? These guidelines that you've fabricated to determine when you should and shouldn't be nice to people? Of course, it's very important to use your discernment in order to ensure that you're not taken advantage of. But are you listening to your gut, to your intuition, and how that's telling you to act in selfless or generous ways? Or are you listening to your fear? Are you listening to these made-up rules that you've created in order to try to predict whether this person is going to take advantage of you or not? In reality, there's no way to know. You just have to act from here. And regardless of how the other person reacts, you know that you honored your truth. You know that you did what you perceive to be in alignment to you in that moment. And that's the best you can do. That's all you can do. And the last thing I want to bring up at this point is you tend to be nice to everyone until someone wrongs you, until they do something that makes you put them in the bucket of a bad person, of a toxic person. And suddenly, with this one person, you become really mean. And I want to bring this up in the context of toxic relationships because us as the self-identified nice people will often be super nice to everyone, but once we're out of that toxic relationship and we see how much pain that person put us through, we suddenly deem them as the villain, and we have no problem sending that person hate or being petty with that person or talking shit about that person. All of these things that in our life we deem as not okay. And this is completely normal. Don't feel bad about doing this because this anger phase after getting out of an unhealthy relationship is really important. As stated in my previous video, questioning if you've been in a toxic relationship. If this kind of topic is grabbing your interest, I highly recommend that you check out that video. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So the anger phase is incredibly important for your emotional safety, but be aware of the fact that this flip happened so fast. That you went from this nice, generous person, and the moment you saw them as bad, you completely changed not only your perception of this person, but how you talk about them, how you treat them, and you feel okay doing all of these things that go against your morals because now it's justified. Recognize that that other aspect of yourself exists, that aspect of yourself that is petty, that is mean, and how can you integrate that aspect of yourself? And I'm not saying if you're a kind person that you may not fall into this pattern, but more likely, because kindness is a bit more conscious, you will be self-aware. So now that we've discussed how to spot the difference between kindness and niceness, how do we make the transition from nice to kind? 1, observe your thoughts to uncover your true intention. Obviously, even if you're doing something that's nice, you will likely have thoughts telling you that it was kind. Even if you did something kind, you may have thoughts that are telling you that you're doing something out of fear because that's your previous program. But instead of getting caught up in trying to figure it out, I recommend going into a state of meditation and observing your thoughts with the intention of seeing why you took a certain action or actions. Listen to the fear. Where is the fear coming from? Is the fear coming from a fear of taking action out of fear? Or is the fear coming from how worthy you are? Do your thoughts tell you that this kindness makes you superior? Do your thoughts tell you that it's unfair that you're kind when other people aren't? Or do your thoughts tell you how much admiration you have for this person? Do your thoughts tell you that you're proud of yourself for doing something scary and being kind to this person when it may have not been the easiest thing to do? There's a lot of overlap with this. But when we can look at our thoughts to really look at the true intention of why we take certain actions, we can slowly learn how to take actions from a place of love instead of from a place of fear, in any form of healing or self-improvement or spiritual growth. Number 2, Notice when you feel obligated to do something. When we do something out of obligation, it's because we fear what consequences will come if we don't do it. Try to avoid acting on things out of a place of obligation. It's not the end of the world if you do. I still do things out of obligation, but the less you do so, the less strong that feeling of obligation becomes. And sometimes if you choose not to do something out of obligation or not do something just because it's the nice thing to do, you'll find that the act of kindness is actually the same, but the energy behind that action is very different. Let me tell you a quick story. So there was one day where I was at a hospital and I had an appointment to get my blood checked. And I was already running late. I was kind of rushing to the elevator. This woman was parked right next to it, and as I was getting in, she was saying, "Hey, can you please help me? I need help getting out of my car." So I set up her walker for her. I helped her get out of her car. And she felt completely disoriented. She didn't know where her appointment was. She didn't know how to get there. And I saw that our appointment was in the same part of the hospital. She asked me to stick with her, and so I did. And as time went on, I saw that she was walking like a snail. She was inching to get places, and she had to take breaks because she was in so much pain from walking. Basically, I walked with her for probably 30 minutes to get somewhere that would have taken me maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I called an elevator for the two of us, and of course, she's walking slowly towards us, and this group of people comes up behind her, passes her, gets into the elevator, and once we get there, they're like, "Oh, sorry, social distancing, like you can't come in the elevator with us." And when I tell you I was heated, I was so mad. I was like, I'm late to my appointment. I helped this woman get all the way here. I don't even know her, and these people took the elevator that I called and didn't even let me get on. Later, when I thought back to that whole 30+ minute interaction, I felt very resentful. And I felt like I was robbed of my time and robbed of my energy. But when I looked back on that event, I thought to myself, I did that from a place of obligation. My initial helping her out of the car was just an immediate act of kindness. But as time went on, I continued to stick with her from a place of obligation, unconsciously. But when I thought back, I'm like, what would I do if I did it from a place of love? And I realized I would have made the exact same decision. She was all alone, disoriented, and scared, and I was there to help her. I would have made the exact same decision if I did the kind thing instead of the nice thing. But the energy I would have experienced would have been different. If I did it from a place of kindness, I would have been present instead of stuck in my head about, oh, I need to get to my appointment. What if I miss my appointment? My mom's gonna kill me. And instead, being present with this person, practicing patience as we walked very slowly down this hall. That experience taught me a lot about the difference between niceness and kindness. It's not about the action that you take specifically, but about the energy and the intent behind the action. So when you feel obligated to do something, sometimes it's not about making the opposite decision. It's about looking at it from a different angle so that you're not taking that action motivated from a place of fear, but changing your viewpoint so that you take that action from a place of love. And therefore, the resentment doesn't build up as intensely. Which leads me to my next point. Number 3, notice when you hold resentment. Resentment is probably the number one way to tell you whether your generous, selfless actions are from a place of kindness or from a place of niceness. Because resentment builds up when we feel like things aren't fair. When we feel like the world isn't treating us how we're supposed to. Because we're doing nice things with an expectation that something's supposed to come back to us. And then we look at the world around us, seeing that other people don't use niceness as a coping mechanism the way that we do, and we feel duped. Fuck, this is supposed to be the thing that gets me acceptance. So why do all these other people not have to do all this stuff to feel worthy, to feel loved? But what you don't see is, even though you were conditioned to see the world this way, now you are the one creating this reality. Now you are the one perpetuating the belief that you have to be nice in order to be worth something. And if you truly want to start taking aligned action, then you have to change the belief system. Number 4, practice being kind when you're scared. Sometimes doing the nice thing, doing the kind thing, isn't easy. Sometimes it's the scariest thing you can do. Putting yourself out there to another person to say, hey, I love you, you're doing great. It can be vulnerable. It can be scary to stick your neck out for someone when maybe they're being targeted in a bullying situation, for example. But when you practice doing that thing of love, that you know is aligned to you, even when the fear is digging its heels in and telling you no, is the number one way for you to develop this pattern of true, authentic kindness instead of fabricated niceness that may have an unconscious ulterior motive. I personally believe this is probably the number one way to help yourself become confident in taking action that's actually aligned to you instead of taking action that you feel like you're supposed to do. Number 5, be honest and don't make excuses. If someone invites you to a party and you don't want to go, there's no other things you have to do, don't lie and tell that person, oh, sorry, my mom last minute asked me to help her run errands, I can't go. You're not being authentic. You're not being honest. You feel like you need a reason to say no in order to be okay with saying no. When you can just say, hey, I'm not up for it tonight. I don't really feel like it. I'm not in the mood, but thanks for the invite. That's the honest thing to do. That's the kind thing to do. You don't need to make excuses in order to avoid trying to make someone else feel bad. Because in doing that, you have the belief that not going simply because you just don't feel like it isn't a good enough reason. And so you feel obligated to lie to feel valid in not going. I know it's uncomfortable, but if you're just honest and respectful, that other person's reaction is not your responsibility. Their reaction doesn't mean you are less lovable. So notice when you fall into excuses and justifications. Obviously, if you need to make excuses to stay physically safe, obviously go for it, because we have fear for a reason, right? We have fear to keep us safe. But are you trying to stay safe from something that isn't the threat you're making it out to be in your head? And lastly, number 6, be gentle with yourself. If you tend to do the nice thing more than the kind thing, don't feel bad about that. Being nice has kept you safe time and time again. People pleasing others is something that has helped you throughout your life. It's not bad to be nice. It's about being conscious as to why you were acting that way. Awareness is the first step to changing your life. How are we going to be able to change if we're not even aware of where we are or why we're doing what we're doing? If you're in this state of becoming aware, that's beautiful. And that's a very important step in this process. Don't feel like you have to flip a switch and now you only have to do the kind thing and never the nice thing. Because then you're limiting yourself. You're keeping yourself stagnant in this place of fear because you're fearing doing the fearful thing. Instead of taking action, reflecting, and learning over time what is and isn't aligned to you. This is a process. You can't plant the seed and expect to eat the fruit the same day. No matter where you are on your journey, it's a beautiful point. Every single point in self-growth, in self-development, in spirituality is a necessary part of your evolution. Thank you for watching this video. Hit that like button if you liked it. Comment any other video ideas you'd like me to do. Subscribe for more content like this, and hit that notification bell if you're really cool. And if you really love me and can't get enough of me, please consider signing up for my Patreon page. I post a video there every week as well as some other really cool things. So I would cheer for just $2 a month, so consider it. Just consider it. I love you guys, and peace out.